What's good, YouTube? Coming back with part two of J Dreamers, silicone trees, giants, and flat Earth, and all that. It's just a theory, though, but hey, it seems more real than what the scientists say. But let's get back into it. I'm gonna hold you up.
The powers that be were watching the devastation done to this plane, and the decision was made for the dome to be opened to allow the waters to pour in and flood out and destroy the giants that had done so much damage to this plane. I speculate that some of the giants survived this flooding, and that perhaps some of the Watchers and maybe other races of beings survived as well. The giants fled this realm and left through the portals of this dome, and the other Watchers and whoever left and fled this plane of existence, that at some point in time something happened to this dome, or perhaps to the portals that various races were using to enter and exit this plane of existence, this planet, that those portals were sealed off. Or maybe something happened to the dome itself.
Okay, so like I said on the other video, the reason why I feel like we can't see the edge, or not the edge, but like pretty much like kind of the edge of the dome, like we can't see where it ends or start the edge of it, right, is because of the flood, and because of the giants when they was excavating and digging out the land and shit. They probably all that dirt from the flood and shit like kind of just washed every way and sealed up the entry points that we know of, or that they knew of. Now, supposedly, they can come, alien ships they've been seen going underwater and going out, and you know what I'm saying, coming from out the sky, going into the water. So the entry points might now be underwater. Who knows, because of the flood.
To keep beings from entering and exiting for a length of time long enough to allow life to flourish here once again. Now, the beings that were trapped inside, whether they be giants, elven, other, watchers, whatever was inside once the portals were sealed, those creatures remained here and were stuck here. At first, perhaps they panicked and tried to find a way out, and then when they realized they couldn't get out, that they came to accept their fate, that they had to now make this their home. They set up kingdoms. They set up areas on this plane to call their own. Remember, I'm just speculating. Perhaps it was that these beings took survivors from the elven race, genetically manipulated the DNA, and perhaps maybe even included their own DNA, and began experiments to create and repopulate this plane in order to have workers to do this work for them, to do the mining and excavating and participate in esoteric rituals, which I will get to in a minute. At some point in time, the survivors of this plane, whether they be genetically manipulated slaves, a slave class or race, or whether they be the population of leftover races from before the deluge, the powers that took control of various kingdoms here around this plane became sorely outnumbered, and they may have fled into hiding. They may have gone into hiding or devised a system to rule without being seen, so that they could continue to work on devising a way to open the portals and leave the dome, leave the barriers of this plane, in order to either return to their own plane of existence or to allow those to return to this plane. So could you imagine the giants from the plane next door suddenly able to cross this barrier and to re-enter into this plane once again? It seems to me that this is on a scale large enough that it must be kept secret from the inhabitants of the current plane. So whether they be the Watchers in control or the giants ruling over the present residents of this plane, it was needed to keep secret that they were working on opening the portals to leave or to re-enter once again. And so I believe, well, I don't believe, but I speculate that they gathered together a class and a group of followers, perhaps naming them priests or lords or kings or what have you, to participate in esoteric, occult rites and rituals in order to do things that we don't quite understand today, and their purpose being to open up the portals to the dome in order to leave or come back once again. Secrecy was necessary to keep from being overthrown, because they now had control over this plane and they did not want to lose control over their current home. They also did not want interference by those creatures who lived here now. And then time passes, and perhaps these Watchers or giants, perhaps they naturally died off over time. Perhaps they're still here, but we don't know. I don't see any evidence that they may still be here, but regardless of if they died naturally, and their followers, their loyal subjects, continued on in their research, and so they invented lies and a weapon to subdue the masses instead of fighting against the population, which severely outnumbered them. They created magical weapons of hypnotism and belief systems and structures and spider webs of invisibility that would affect the mind and cloud the thinking.
I think they still here. I think they might still be here, but that's a whole nother thing on his own.
Of the current inhabitants of this plane, in order to keep us from interfering with what was happening at the portals around the barriers of this plane, and in order to keep us from overthrowing their plans to do so. Perhaps there's symbolism all over the place from a civilization long lost to us, and these symbols are held by those who know, or by direct family members from a time long past. And perhaps there is an objective to all this. Perhaps the objective is to open those doors, those portals, or to change the dome itself in order to be able to traverse once again into other planes of existence, or for them to get back to their home world. And so perhaps things like the globe model of the Earth and space were created to trick the minds of the current inhabitants into thinking, one, that they could not cry out to the powers that be that obviously could control the dome and obviously could influence that plane of existence, to keep people from the reality of the infinite plane system, from keeping us from leaving, because we are their power. We have become their loyal subjects. And that's the last thing I think they want to do, is to lose their control over the current inhabitants of this plane, and to therefore lose their kingdom that they have set up. This has all been speculation.
And now, listen, third world countries. I was watching, it was this TikTok of this lady saying, I'm starting to realize, or I'm starting to think third world countries is just a nation of people who said no. That's literally what they are. A nation of people who said no. They didn't want this good. They didn't want this, the tainted government. They already knew what the government was about. They didn't want them to rule over them. They kept the control in their hands, the people's hands. They didn't want this type of government that we have. That's literally all the third world country is. And it's not even the third world country, it's really the first world country. But they made this the new world and turned them into the third world country. But realize, if you notice, we don't even make everything here in America. Everything we get is imported from the third world countries. Computer chips, which now they starting to try. I seen like a couple years ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years, they starting to try to make computer chips here in America. But we get computer chips from over there in like India or something like that over there, somewhere, but we definitely get it from a third world country, quote unquote. Clothes, look on the back of everything we got, motherfucker. That shit might say China or somewhere, just not America. Some third world country. That's literally all third world country really was. It's a nation of people who said no. Haiti is just a nation of people who said no. They didn't want to conform to the government. That's that the power is still in their hands. That's why you can go over there and everybody still look happy. Everybody still look joyful. They still look like they got their life, because they do. They not ran by a secret, unseen hand of people and shit. You feel me? So yeah, that's literally all third world country is. But that's it for this. Oh, well, I was saying all that to say, hell no, they don't want to lose their kingdom. That's why they got us chasing after the dollar now, because they don't want to lose their kingdom. The kingdom that they set up and built here in Turtle Island, the new world. So yeah, but that's it on this video, man. I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one for sure.